everybody, it's Sophie and Marco, Dish Out on the Movies. And we have a little bit more Halloween week left to do. We've already watched our last two movies. We just had the selection, and we also had to review the latest episode of Fargo. So I'm sorry that we're late, but we do have the reviews done. We just have to say them online and upload them, and then we'll be done with Halloween. And guess what's next?
All of her list videos.
Oh, my list, very brief. If you don't want to hear it, you should tell Marco. This is like ranking all of 2019 and a bunch of other stuff like that. And then we have Christmas. Yahoo! We're already working on that anyway, on what we're going to watch and review. So we'll see what happens. It's a little hard, but...
Oh, is that a pun, Sophie? It's a little hard as in Die Hard? Oh. Because it's really funny. Sophie hates Bruce Willis, which I do too. I think he's trash.
Well, and, I don't dislike him as much as I used to.
Well, it's the fact that, like, he always does the same thing. He seems like a really mean person in, like, all of his roles, in my opinion. Like, every time I've seen him, it's like, you know, this guy seems like a hard-edged jackass in real life. And, you know, lately, he was in Glass, where he was asleep the whole movie. And, but, you know, it's funny that Sophie and I have always hated Bruce Willis, but we've never seen Die Hard until I watched it last night. So we'll be reviewing it.
In fact, I guess that's going to be our first, quote, Christmas movie that we're going to review. But anyway, back to Halloween, because we really love Halloween, and we could celebrate Halloween all year long, as I wouldn't mind doing, because I love it. Anyway, our next to the last Halloween movie, or you know what I mean, horror, quote, horror movie that we're going to review is Texas Chainsaw 2. And it came out in 1986. And I'll just give three of the main actors, because really, there's just not that much there. Dennis Hopper, the famous Dennis Hopper, who has passed away. He plays Lefty, a Texas Marshal. Bill Johnson plays Leatherface. And Stretch is played by a lady named Caroline Williams, which I thought she did pretty well. There were a couple of other people who were actually associated with Leatherface, but I'm just not going to. One is called Platehead, because he has a plate in his head, and you'll see that very clearly.
That's the guy that we met. Why didn't you get his name? We met him.
I don't know.
God,
and then there was the meat salesman.
God.
And he was, I don't know what he was to them, if he's the brother, uncle, grandpa.
They never really explained that in either of the movies, so I'm just saying that, you know, he's the cook. He's the guy who cooks everything for...
Well, he's the one that actually gets out in public and talks about their business, their meat business. So, but he doesn't really say anything significant. He just laughs a lot. Both of them laugh. Platehead and him laugh a lot. So anyway, basically this is a pretty simple story, and it sounds kind of funny because it's Texas Chainsaw, and there was, I think, a lot to the first movie. But what happens is two wealthy looking, they're driving expensive car, wearing nice clothes, they're college boys, and they're headed to a football game. And it's probably some kind of championship game, but they're all excited, but they're a little bit too excited. The passenger likes to shoot his gun in the air, and they're driving along the highway at a really fast speed, and he's shooting a handgun into the air out the window, which is spastic. And then they come upon a big truck, huge truck, bigger than their car. And they think it's really funny what they decide to do, and that is they try to keep it from moving onward. And they swerve and in every conceivable direction to try to block it. And why would they do something like that? You know about road rage. Well, what do you think's going to happen? Whoever is driving that truck is not going to be happy and probably come back to either call the cops or come back and do something themselves. And so what happens, they get away. The big truck gets away and moves along, and they just think that they're fine. And meanwhile, I just want to say, they've been calling this radio station, they're doing a show where they take requests, and then they play the request. And so these guys are it's a woman, the DJ, and this is Stretch. And this is Texas. She got the southern accent. She sounds really cool. And meanwhile, guess what happens? The big truck comes back. They don't drive back in their same direction. They back up. So they're going very fast and backing up and driving alongside this car with the two wise guys. And they won't shake them. And they can't shake them, and they just keep driving backwards, which is extremely dangerous and hard to do because they're going fast. And then out pops Leatherface, and he has a chainsaw, and you can guess the rest. Well, this is when, so all this time they had been on the phone, and they were actually telling the girl what's going on, or trying to. And so she has it recorded because it's the policy of their radio station to record any request phone calls or anything. It's just their policy, and then I guess they erase them after a certain amount of time. So she's got this whole thing, murders on the line and recorded. So, okay, that's all done, and the cops find the wreckage. And along comes Dennis Hopper. This is when he comes. His name is Lefty. Like I said, he's a U.S. Marshal. Well, he has spent all these years researching that first Texas Chainsaw Massacre and what happened with those people, and are they somewhere now? And anytime he hears of anything like this, he runs immediately to the scene. Well, they think he's kind of a crank. And they kind of dismiss him, and he goes away. And meantime, the woman finds out about him, and Lefty, and she brings the tape of the call. And so the rest of the movie actually is just them, Lefty and Stretch's co-worker at the station. It's only two people. And they're battling, and first they're trying to find Leatherface, and then they are battling him. That's the whole movie. That's it.
Okay, and so guys, I just wanted that to go on right there because I wanted you to see what happens when I let Safi talk, because she just went on for 8 minutes describing the whole movie as if no one's ever seen it before.
Well, I don't think they want to see it after this because it's a crappy movie.
Oh, that's your opinion. I thought the movie was pretty good, since we're getting to the actual review now. I thought the movie was pretty good. It's just not that great, in my opinion, which I really don't care what people think about that, because, in my opinion, I've always hated it as a kid. I hated it. I didn't even finish it as a kid, and I finished a lot of movies that were worse. Like, I would watch black and white Universal monster movies, and I was able to finish those. But for some reason, Texas Chainsaw 2, I was not able to finish. And the reason is because the movie's like a cartoon. It's like a live-action cartoon of Leatherface and his family versus one person, or I guess two people, quote unquote, and it's really disappointing, in my opinion. It's really overrated. And I'm not trying to say it's a bad movie, because it's not. It's okay. It's just like after that amazing first movie, the first movie, I just rewatched it again just to like have stuff to talk about. The first movie is a masterpiece, and you put that up next to the second one. The second one looks like trash. when you put them next to each other, because the first one is a horror movie. This movie is a kids comedy movie. The effects are they're pretty bad, compared to the first one, where the effects were very minimalist but very realistic and creepy. The only effect that I would say I liked more was the way that the grandpa looked. I thought that the first movie's grandpa looked very fake, very much like a mask. I really liked how they made him look in this movie. But the biggest problem with this movie is Leatherface. Do you agree, Safi? I mean, what do you you liked Leatherface.
I don't mind. The thing that bothered me about this movie and why I say it's bad, it's the same old story. Well, a little different. People get a ton of money to make a movie and they don't do their jobs. And a lot of other people would like to make a movie. They would love to get the money to make a movie and they would do a good job. And they didn't. The problem is some of the people who made the movie didn't take it seriously. And it showed. It's like they just thought, well, we did so well with the first, we can just fudge around and see what happens. And then at the end, they just kind of like throw their arms up into the air and whatever happened. Like where the chips, let the chips fall where they may, that kind of thing. And, come on, really? And that's why I say it's a bad movie. They have some good ideas, and Marco actually has a book that talks about the effects, and the effects people actually, they really tried to do something. Especially I read it too, with the car scene, and they were thwarted by the post-production.
The editing.
And
they had a great, quote-unquote, a great effect shot, and the shot was cut out because of the editor.
So, what are you supposed to do? You have some people who did take it seriously. If you read this, you would read that they tried every little the tiniest of detail to make this a good shot. Because they're only in charge of the effects. And, they did everything. And then somebody comes in there and gets their scissors out and chops. And, I would think that'd be so frustrating.
Well, that's one of the reasons why a director's cut exists. Well, not a one for this movie, but in general, that's why they exist, because the studios, as usual, they ruin the films. And so then the director has to go back a year later and fix it. And, but with this movie, as I was saying with Leatherface a couple of minutes back, Leatherface is awful in this movie. He is a poor excuse for Leatherface. He is skinny. He's like a little teenage kid. He does not look like a big beefy Leatherface like in the first one. The mask is trash. You can see a lot of his face. It's just, I hate the way Leatherface looks in this movie. The way that he acts, the way that he stops and does these little dances where he shakes around. Like, God, what a joke. And the reason why is because the director, Tobe Hooper, he said, we can never make a movie as good as the first one. And so let's just make a joke. Let's just make a movie that just doesn't take it seriously. A movie that just, has fun, quote unquote, if you call this fun. And then it'll just be a fun movie. And guess what? It's trash because of that. If there's a lot of great ideas, that's the funny thing. There's a lot of great ideas in this movie. Like, if you go back and watch the first one, the main girl, Sally, she tries to reason with everybody except for Leatherface. She tries to reason with the hitchhiker. She tries to reason with the cook. And then she looks over at Leatherface and she just screams. And so it was a fantastic idea in this movie. the main girl,
Stretch.
she she
I think that's a great name, and she has a great accent too. I don't know if she's originally from Texas or not, but she has a really good accent.
she
If I knew what Mark was trying to say, I'd help him say it, but I don't know. So.
she tries.
Oh, I know. She actually tries to talk to Leatherface as a human being.
Yeah, she is the one who communicates with Leatherface. And guess what? It works! And I thought that was great. That's such a great idea. If it was done in a serious movie, that would have been really good. And, like, there's so many great ideas. It's like, you could have made a serious movie, you dumbass!
I don't get that logic about, because the first one's so good, they can't make one that would ever be better, or I don't know, I just think it's weird.
Trash! Lazy! Lazy! And this movie has so many good ideas, and you know what else? We trash a lot of female characters on this channel for a reason. Most of them nowadays are awful agenda characters. They're poorly written. They're acted by women who slept with the director for the role. So they're terrible at acting. I won't say who that is, but I've heard about some, like, I won't even say.
Let's not.
But the point is that they're all trash, for the most part. And then you have movies like this, and the main female character, Stretch, is a great character, and I would say she's one of the best parts of the movie. She's great at acting, she has a great scream, and she does a really good job as a protagonist, in my opinion.
She's cool.
But then you have the rest of the movie. The problem with this movie, well, there's a lot of problems with this movie. You start off, you have that cartoony, goofy, stupid sequence where Leatherface is killing someone from his car. I thought that was stupid. I thought, it could have been really scary if maybe it was like a couple and they parked in the middle of a field in the middle of nowhere, and then Leatherface comes with his chainsaw and saws through the car. Like, that would have been really creepy. Like, maybe you'd have, like, a bunch of cars surround them, and like, it would all be members of the family surrounding them with their cars. Like, see, look, I just came up with a better opening scene than they did, and I didn't even put any effort into it, in my opinion. But that would have been much better. But instead, we get this goofy sequence, and then we get just kind of like this boring period until it's kind of like the most conventional part of the movie, where it's like Stretch and then the guy that she works with who she friend zones, and then Dennis Hopper just acting like Dennis Hopper. I didn't really like him in this movie.
He didn't do much acting. He just really, basically, he could have been asleep.
Yeah.
Saying it's like, I mean, I'm not saying he said him boringly, that's a word, like he was asleep, but I mean,
I thought
they were nothing.
He was very conventional, very
he was very one-dimensional.
Cliche. Like, oh, I double-crossed you. Oh, that's not what matters. Like, God, I've heard that a million times.
And that's a shame, because he's a good actor.
Yeah.
I'm not saying he's a bad actor at all. He is a good actor. This movie just didn't do anything for him.
He was miscast.
Yeah.
The first movie was good because it was a bunch of nobodies, and they all got a chance to show off and do a really fantastic movie. But in this movie, you have Dennis Hopper, he's trash in it. You have Stretch, she's really good. You have her friend who just gets killed, and that's it.
Her co-worker, yeah, he didn't last long.
And I really liked, speaking of another great idea, he comes back to life somehow, and they
didn't kill him off.
Yeah, they didn't kill him too good. And so he comes back, and he helps her out a little, and then he just dies.
Away. Yeah.
And I thought, Again, if that was in a serious movie, that would have been really, really good. You should have made a serious movie. Why did you have to do this? Why did you have to make a cartoon? There are some other good things. I really like the scare where they go into the record room, and then I think they go in there or something, or they turn on a light, and then Leatherface jumps out, and I thought that was really effective. If it was in a serious movie, it would have been even more effective. And then I really liked the last 15 minutes of the movie, where there's a dinner sequence. They do the thing with Grandpa, and then my favorite moments of the whole movie were, and I don't really care about spoilers because people have already seen it. When Grandpa tries to throw his hammer at Dennis Hopper, and then Dennis ducks, and he hits Leatherface right in the head. I thought that was fantastic. And that was you take all these things that happened in the first one, and you do them again, but you have them have different outcomes that are even better. And then Stretch is climbing out of the lair, this gigantic, evil, goofy, little monsters world lair, and she's climbing this huge ladder, and meanwhile you have Mr. Platehead, and he's slashing at her, at her ankles. That was really creepy and horrific, because it's like you could tell that would hurt, and it was really intense, a fight. They get to the top, and then she has to do this thing with a chainsaw. That was a fantastic fight scene. In my opinion, that was really well done, but I wish it was serious.
Oh, well.
What do you think, Safi? I mean, talk details. I mean, what did you think?
It seemed like, it was too simple. There could have been more to it, more victims, which sounds weird.
Yeah, there's only one victim the whole movie.
It's just the two people in the car.
And then her friend.
There's her cohort, her co-partner, co-business partner, whatever. But, I mean, as far as, any other scene anywhere else where, I mean, Dennis Hopper was supposedly, there had been other cases of some kind of chainsaw problem, and for years.
Yeah.
Since the first one. And really? Where? What were they? When?
Yeah, I don't see any evidence of that.
And there's no evidence of that. And it's just a shame. It's like they were lazy. They got lazy. Yeah. And then when you have these people who are on the movie are actually trying to do a good job, they are doing their jobs, they cut off what they do. And why couldn't they have left that in there?
Well, to be fair, that wasn't the director's fault with the effects thing. That was the editor's fault.
Okay, why would the editor? I wasn't even thinking the director. I was thinking of the editor. Why would the editor do that? Why would you? I mean, the movie, I don't know when these people make these movies. I mean, don't they have a feeling of success or failure while they make the movie? Do they really, if it's a really not a good movie, do they really believe that won't they have any sense or feeling? I mean, some of these people, like the staff, for example, the effects people, they've probably been in a lot of different projects. And I would think they would have a sense of failure or success.
Some of them do, the smart ones.
Well, and so when you have an editor come in there, do they know what's been going on this entire time? Have they been editing the entire time? I really don't know the process. Is editing something? I mean, when you write.
Well, you're
constantly editing all the time, all throughout. So is that the way with the movie?
They had to process the film as well.
Yeah.
Because it was actual film. But the thing is that it might be for two reasons. It might be, number one, the most likely is the ratings board, because the ratings board probably one of the most useless parts of the film industry. These old people who decide what rating to give movies, all of their ratings are a bunch of bullshit. They give an R rating to Wolf of Wall Street when he literally shows like porn in that movie. Like the whole movie is basically a giant porno, and he's allowed to get a rated R. But then, like, if Texas Chainsaw 2 did that, they get NC-17, they get an X, and it's like this hypocrisy of like,
favoritism.
This movie has blood in it, it has violence, we can't show that because adults can't see that. We can't let people be exposed to that type of violence, because then they'll do violences in real life. And so, like, maybe the editor was thinking, because that shot was so explicit, with the piece of head literally falling off, like, maybe he thought, oh no, we can't show that because the ratings board is gonna give our movie an X. Or you could have it be where we have the Better Call Saul symptom, which I don't know if we should call it that or what, where everything has to be rushed, got to cut everything short, got to just speed through everything, oh, that shot, that's too much, we got to cut that down and make it take like 1 second instead of 5 seconds so that we can have our symmetry. So those are my two possibilities.
Well, whatever. It's not a very good movie.
Yeah.
I mean, you might want to watch it. When people have collections or when they have favorites of things, they like to see all the movies or read all of the collection, even though that they're not all going to be good.
Yeah.
But they just want to see it, as a whole, because it's something that they like. And I've experienced that. I've read collections of books where they may have done 14 books, and maybe there's a couple that just are stinkers. And that's just, they know that. That's just the way it is. So it's like this series. But it's just too bad because, this is only the second movie. This isn't the 14th movie. This is the second. So, if you compare it like to Halloween, that last movie they made was crap.
Oh.
But they've made a ton of movies. And they've had a lot of significant losses.
That's different, though, because with that new movie, they're ignoring all the other movies and acting like they never happened.
Yeah, but so anyway, there's really no excuse, and that it just irritates me. I believe that I just know, as a writer, I used to interview all kinds of different artists, art forms, and movie making is an art form. And if people, they study and they sacrifice, and some are very creative and do a good job, and they might actually have a new idea. That's been a real bad thing lately. All people do is make remakes, and it's like they have no original ideas. Well, somebody out there does, but they don't even get a chance. So you give all the same money to the same old, and then you get the same old, and it just isn't right. And of course, there's all this agenda stuff too, but
that's a new thing.
You're not going to do the agenda stuff if you don't have the money to make any movie. So one doesn't exist without the other. So that just irritates me. But I think we better give it our.
Yeah, let's go to rating. What would you rate it, Sophie?
Well, what I did was, this can happen to anybody. Well, it happened to Marco. Every week we eat out for the dinner once, because it's trash day and there's just a lot of chores, and so nobody wants to make dinner. Okay,
don't say where it's from. Don't say
no,
where
I'm
it is.
not going to do that.
Well, you have it written in your review, so.
No, I don't.
Yeah, you do.
Well, it's just Chinese food, and we've gotten Chinese food at lots of different places. So he asked for chicken lo mein. Well, chicken lo mein, a standard chicken lo mein is chicken and sauce and noodles, because lo mein means noodles, not rice. And then there might be a little vegetables in it, like an onion, maybe a little celery, and maybe a tiny bit of carrots. But there still is enough to notice them. And he just ordered that recently, and then he ordered extra vegetables. So you would get a lot of vegetables because it's just an order of vegetables to put in there. And so not only did they skimp on what they would usually put in, the onion, etc., they didn't put anything for extra vegetables. So there's hardly anything in it. It was just meat and noodles. Well, that isn't what he ordered. And so it's basically like this movie. You get a few things, but you don't get a whole enriching meal. And that's what I'm comparing it to. And that can happen to anybody with any kind of dinner. They don't get the whole dinner. And it's going to be the same thing, but this is something recent, and it happened to Marco. So, and we still had to pay for it. So, that's it.
Yeah, it was bad.
Okay, Marco, what are you giving it?
Well, I would give it... I was thinking of cartoons, and back in the day when you get ready for school and you'd turn on a cartoon, and a lot of the times for me they would be good cartoons because I wouldn't put up with watching shit, and so I would turn on like Arthur, and Arthur was really, really good up until they put all the agenda stuff recently. But it used to be really, really good. And it was probably one of my favorite things to watch. Even though I was a horror movie fan, I would watch adult horror movies, and then I would go watch things like Arthur. And what would I eat? Cereal, Safi. Cereal. But this movie is a special kind of cereal. This movie is Frankenberry cereal. Because that's what this movie is. It's trashy, it's goofy, it's cartoony, it's flamboyant, colorful, have like the pink, like everything's still like just cartoony, saturated, colorful looking. It's just a cartoon. Excuse me. But that's what it really reminded me of. You get this sugary cereal, there's really no substance to cereal, and it's just excuse me again, and it's just this sugary, cartoony mess. But the thing is that sometimes it's nice to have a sugary mess, and so it's fun to have that kind of cereal once in a while, like around the Halloween time. You have a bowl of that crappy cereal, and then you just throw the rest of it away. That's what this movie's like for me. Frankenberry cereal.
All right. Well, I think we should mention our last Halloween movie is called Wishbone: Legend of Sleepy Hollow. Actually, it has another official title. But I don't know if you remember the series. It's a PBS series. And this was a Halloween show, and Wishbone was a now I can't remember the name. A little dog. They're very smart. I'm sorry, I can't think of the name right now of what it is. And his actual real name in real life was Soccer. He's passed away since then because this was a long time ago, and in the 90s, early 90s, I think. I have it when we do the review. I'll say, but. Anyway, it is a children's show, but it's a really good episode, and it's good to do stuff for parents so they can, they may not want to show their child Leatherface.
Well, they should.
Well, I know, but anyway, it's a fun show, and it was so pleasant to watch it after this horrible week that's still going on into eternity, and so anyway, that's why we picked it, and that will be our last Halloween show, quote, / movie to review. Okay? So goodbye. Oh, be sure to like and subscribe, or dislike, or make a comment. And if you've seen this movie, tell us did you agree or disagree, and why? And what do you think about us doing this Wishbone show? And
Well, it
Anything
doesn't
else?
matter what they think. We're going to do it anyway.
Well, that's right. And just for fun. And because we like to hear what you think too. Why not? And that's it. So like and subscribe or dislike, whatever you want. But have a nice day and a nice week. Better than this one.
Goodbye, everybody.
Bye.